This program is brought to you by Sonatrach.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another special coverage that is going to be dedicated to the 7th Summit of the Gas Exporting Countries held here in Algiers for its second day to discuss the pivotal role of gas serving as a transitional energy source. We have here in studio Mr. Lawrence Walker, who is a Deputy Editor-in-Chief for Montel News, dedicated for energy news. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right, yes.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to this.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
My first question to you, sir, is how is this summit really important, seeing the geopolitical context it comes in?
Well, certainly from a producer's point of view, obviously we have a lot of the exporters here. It's very important for them to understand, I think, where they stand in a world which is transitioning to cleaner fuels, lower carbon environment, and what role they will play in this transition. And from a consumer's point of view, it's very important for us to know what the producers are going to be doing over the coming years, where supply is going to come from. I think.
And speaking of supplies, I mean, we have seen that there's been disruption in supplies whenever there is a crisis around the world, and these kind of fluctuations in supplies make the energy market really unstable. And having such forum, for example, could actually maybe pave the way toward creating an organization, why not, such as the OPEC, that could actually stabilize the market, don't you think?
Yes, I mean, I think it would be difficult to have one organization, for example, setting the price of gas. At the moment, it's an international market, so a lot of the prices will depend on the supply and demand. And I mean, for example, now in Europe, we have reduced our reliance a lot on pipeline gas from Russia, which was until the war in Ukraine began, a couple of years ago. We relied for maybe 40% of our gas on Russia. Now this has been reduced to less than 10%, and we have a lot more reliance on liquefied natural gas, so LNG. These cargoes, they move where the market commands them to move in many ways. Obviously, there are certain volumes which are fixed with long-term contracts, but there are also plenty of spot volumes which move to where the price is. And I think both for the supplier and for the buyer, you need the flexibility to be able to respond to price indicators on the market, and then that's where the gas goes, I guess.
Now, if we speak about maybe global climate challenges, right? What role does natural gas actually play in this energy transition? Although we know that it's not 100% clean, or not as clean as other, renewable sources.
Yes, I mean, it's no secret. It's still a fossil fuel. It's still something which will eventually be moved away from in many areas and many countries. I think one of its main roles, pivotal role at the moment, is providing that supply security in the meantime. So, for example, in Europe, we are reducing our uses of coal massively. For example, in the UK, we're going to close our last coal plant this year. Other countries as well are, reducing, phasing out their coal usage. Where gas comes in, it is taking the place of coal in many instances, providing that baseload capacity. So, although we are also rolling out plenty of wind energy, solar power in the southern European countries mostly, we still, on those days where we need some baseload capacity, something which can be there when there's no wind, when there's no sun. Gas is one of those things. This is obviously Europe. In Asia, other countries, there's perhaps more opportunities as well for gas. In the development of the economies.
So what's understood is that gas is here at least as a transition, and you said eventually we're gonna have to get rid of it. Technically, if you want to keep our environment clean. But then we see some efforts from some governments, including Algeria, trying to include certain technologies maybe to make the gas emission or the methane emission kind of less and less. Do you think that there are challenges to enhance sustainability with this energy source?
Yes, I mean, there are challenges, certainly. There are ways of reducing the emissions. And I mean, for example, with carbon capture and storage technology, which is being widely developed, this is a way to continue burning gas and for it to be more environmentally friendly, certainly more so than coal and other sort of dirtier resources. To what extent that will be rolled out over the coming years, I'm not sure, but certainly there is that possibility. And then beyond that, you have carbon capture, storage and usage. So if you can use that carbon for other purposes as well, then there are, perhaps, other benefits. But yeah.
Well, I guess it's no secret that maybe investing in the field of gas is costly, and it needs some kind of long-term contracts that we're going to talk about a little bit later on our discussion. But then add to this costs, prioritizing maybe investment in renewable energy sources, or maybe to certain cutting-edge technology to make it cleaner.
Yes, I mean, possibly. I mean, again, a lot of investors or a lot of banks these days, they won't invest in fossil fuels. So it's going to be down maybe to energy companies, to governments, private investors, I'm not sure, who will get involved. It's certainly going to be more popular to invest in a renewable at this stage. But with gas, I think obviously if you're going to develop it, you do need to find money from somewhere, whether that be through the buyer or whether it be through the government. I'm not really.
Yeah, and maybe this could actually make the challenge another challenge, which is the affordability of such energy resource. Well, we're going to have to deal with the costs in either way, either in renewable energy or dealing with gas. But then here, if we speak about geopolitical implications of this summit, with tensions in regions like the Red Sea affecting gas supply routes, how can countries that produce gas ensure stability in the global gas market in light of these geopolitical tensions?
Again, it's a difficult one, especially we're talking about the Red Sea, we're talking about LNG. It's a sort of a global commodity now, it can go anywhere. And the Red Sea situation is obviously, I mean, for Europe, we're talking about Qatar sending its ships through the Red Sea. It's not really in their control. They can't say something's going to happen or not. What we found since this happened is that they've had to reroute cargoes. So you've had cargoes going around the Cape of Good Hope.
So rerouting means more money?
Well, not necessarily more money, but I mean, in this situation, it's meant more time. So the cargoes have arrived in Europe still, or they've arrived, but they've had to go, take 10 days longer to get there.
When I mean money, that is transportation fees, for sure.
Yes, I think to some extent. But again, yes, I think once obviously going through the Red Sea, you have the insurance costs, which are going through the roof as well. There's other areas, so I think comparably, once you start moving stuff around, the Africa, the costs are kind of offset by that to some extent.
So these countries, maybe if they come together, do you think they can secure supply routes?
I think,
there is some kind of a mechanism, some kind of an understanding.
It's also easier with the pipeline, for example, because your pipeline is there and the gas is going to go through it to the end user. With the seaborne gas, with the LNG, it's more difficult because you're at the at the whim of sort of international developments. So,
and do you think in such summits, such questions are discussed, or maybe we could have some tangible benefits?
I think it's certainly being discussed. I mean, take Algeria, for example, and certainly I'm hearing plenty of comments along the lines of, that it's in a position where it's easy to supply without facing such challenges, such the Red Sea issues or the Panama Canal issues or certain other issues. So I'm sure they're looking at how how there's perhaps a way of making sure that the gas does end up there. And there are other ways that people have discussed, for example, swap deals. So maybe you could swap a cargo of LNG that was going to be going to Europe and instead send it to Asia, and instead have one that was going to be going to Asia come to Europe. So it's there's ways of doing counteracting it.
So
but it's
we see there are many shared interests among gas-producing nations that compel them to collaborate more closely. How do these interests shape international energy policies, according to you?
Well, the interest is, I suppose, everyone. I suppose the consumers all want security of supply, so they will do what they can to ensure that this gas will arrive, and they will have enough to meet their demands. Increasingly, they're looking for the environmental security as well, that what they're importing is perhaps the best case scenario for their green transitions. From a supplier, they need to know that they have a market for their production, especially as you mentioned this. It's expensive to expand production, it's expensive to develop or even reroute production. So they want to know that if they are going to get this gas out of the ground, it's going to have somewhere to go and at a fair price.
Do you think we need more investment perhaps in infrastructure resilience to mitigate the risk and stabilize the market more?
Yes, I mean, to some extent. I mean, for example, on import infrastructure, what we've seen again since the war in Ukraine, there's been a massive build out of LNG capacity across Europe. This has purely been to ensure that security and ensure that we can import sufficient volumes of LNG to meet security of supply. So certainly on the import side, there is, and again. Export terminals as well. Obviously, we see in America they're building new capacity to export LNG in other countries as well. So, it is important, but it's
Well, you mentioned the United States of America. Equally, Australia are not members of the forum.
Well, yes.
Which is kind of funny. Do you think that we need to promote for such forums and maybe try to entice all the big, producers?
Oh, certainly, yes. I think, with anything, the more open the dialogue, the more results you're going to get. And I think certainly, yes. I mean, if you had the US involved, you had Australia involved, Norway involved. These are all key participants on the market, and it's hard again for you to come to a decision on something if you don't have all of the players there at the table.
And when we speak about the energy industry in general, it's really a delicate and sensitive, let's say, card that people can misuse in a way. And this is what is happening around the world in general, and recently what we have seen in recent development in Europe. But then Algeria has been really good when it comes to energy diplomacy. Do you think we can promote for this energy diplomacy and try to reduce reliance on vulnerable transit, maybe routes and maybe actors?
Yes, possibly. I mean, again, it's what kind of diplomacy and who's talking to who. I mean, as I mentioned before, it's very hard to second guess when something will happen like is happening in the Red Sea now. A year ago, you would say Qatari LNG is very safe. It's going to come to Europe without a problem. Now, yes, it's coming to Europe. It's coming with a delay, but people are considering. There has been a lot of consideration about. Will it stop completely? Will there be supply shortages? These sort of things. So, but yes, I mean, a better understanding, a better relationships between countries is always going to help.
Definitely. And considering Algeria's significant role in energy diplomacy, according to your vision and your observation, I mean, how does the country actively contribute to bring in diverse views on the future of energy here, and what impacts does this have on global energy security and cooperation?
I would say, I mean, so I only arrived yesterday. I haven't spoken with
Yeah, so
a lot of.
talking about
adherents.
Algeria, I mean, you have been perhaps observing
Yeah.
that Algeria has been a really reliable supplier, for example, to
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah, I mean,
UK does actually buy from Algeria a lot of LNG, and we have been a reliable
Yeah.
supplier. And the same thing now, we have transactions with Spain and
Yeah.
Italy, and all this thanks to a certain wise diplomacy when it comes to certain affairs. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so certainly, again, we keep going back to the Russia thing,
Yeah.
but since this effective massive reduction in Russian supply, we have seen especially as you mentioned, Italy and Spain are taking, very, very large and stable, generally stable amounts of gas from Algeria. I think they're both, Algeria is the largest supplier to both countries. I think it provides something like a third of Spain's gas now. And so it's, certainly that I think there is an acceptance that this gas is coming. It isn't open to the vagaries of the Red Sea. It's not being affected by some of the other geopolitical events which are hurting trade from other countries perhaps. So, yeah.
Perfect. What factors should be taken into consideration to ensure, let's say, affordable prices, fair prices, transparent maybe pricing mechanism? Do you have an idea, like how could these actors, I mean, gas producing countries, shape such mechanisms?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are different ways of pricing the gas. We have indices, price indices, which the gas can be linked to. I think traditionally there was a lot more gas was linked to oil prices, for example. Now it tends to be more so maybe linked to the TTF, the European benchmark, for Europe at least. So, yes, I mean, for example, longer-term contracts linked to liquid price
Why
benchmarks.
long-term contracts are so important here?
Well, this is a bit of a point of disagreement perhaps in Europe. I think more so, in Europe at least, buyers are quite reluctant to sign long-term contracts purely, for at least 10, 15 years, mainly because they're not sure how long gas will be used still, so they don't want to commit. Also, as you mentioned earlier, it's a fossil fuel, so they don't want to necessarily be seen to be locking into a dirty fuel. From a supplier point of view, it's important to know where it's going, and as you mentioned about the cost of new production, new export terminals, these sort of things, the supplier wants to know that he's going to get his money back somewhere along the line. So I think what we're seeing is maybe probably certainly a preference for long-term contracts, certainly from the supplier. From the buyer, there is perhaps a wish for them in many places because you want to know that you have that security of supply, security of pricing, but they are also reluctant because of the energy transition. They're also perhaps want to hedge their bets a bit.
Do you think it's fair?
Yeah.
Do you think it's fair? I mean, we have long-term contracts because the supplier, you said, is investing big amounts of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a costly project actually to explore, look for the gas, and then try to invest in that, build the infrastructure, and it takes years actually to finish that kind of investment and project. And for this reason, the supplier, as you said, are asking for long-term contracts. And we see, on the other hand, in contrast, Europe trying to kind of lean away from all these fossil fuels in general. So is it really fair to ask for long-term contracts, and does Europe really have an alternative? Can we just abruptly, transit to something, clean?
Well, we can't see abruptly. I mean, I think the downside for Europe in not having long-term contracts is that you don't necessarily know where all of the gas will come from. It means you're competing with Asia, you're competing with other markets for those kind of spot cargoes for that supply that isn't covered by existing longer-term contracts. So, it takes away a little bit of the certainty for the buyer. Of course, there can be companies who will buy. We'll take long-term contracts to off-take certain gas, and then they will maybe sell it on the open market somewhere else. It doesn't have to necessarily, they don't necessarily have to bring it to Europe to use. So
And this brings to light the current state of the relationship between gas-producing countries and consumers. In what ways does this summit actually facilitate dialogue between gas-exporting countries and consumer nations, according to you, or similar summits of this sort?
Yes, I mean, obviously we're primarily talking about exporters here, so producers. I would have to admit I haven't seen many buyers or consumers here. So I think what is important is perhaps what the exporters show the world, show the buyers, show everyone what they're likely to do, what they want to do, what they think they should do, and it gives perhaps some direction for the energy market as a whole. So yes, I think it's more a case of showing what they can do here.
Yeah, if we talk about expectations, what kind of expectations or specific expectations do gas-producing nations have from consuming countries regarding the terms of gas sales contracts in general and the sharing of investment risks? And how can these expectations be balanced to ensure perhaps mutual benefit?
Well, that's, again, I suppose it goes back to some of the long-term contracts. So, yes, I mean, they can maybe demand or encourage buyers to become involved in the investment process so that, they will put the money into the project and,
So that's one way to do it?
Yes, yeah. Otherwise, we're talking about, encouraging government investment, these sort of things as well.
And what do consuming countries expect from the producing ones?
Well, they expect, I guess, well, to go back to the security supply thing, but they expect the supply to arrive. They expect suppliers who will fulfill existing contracts. They expect, things to, basically supply to arrive on time when they need it, at the price that's...
If we speak perhaps about organizations just like the OPEC, nobody can actually deny that it has been really a good, let's say, negotiator, a good factor or actor that actually stabilizes the market and always ensures that there is enough supply. We see that it can be a fair deal for both nations, the producing and the consuming, thanks to such organizations. Do you think that such a forum could be upgraded to the status of an organization, perhaps? I mean, we have been hearing a lot of talk among journalists and in the media that there is this chance that it could be a part of the dialogue between leaders.
The other people should be involved as well, you're saying? Yeah, I mean, I think as you mentioned earlier, there are some key participants in the gas market who aren't involved in this forum, and so yeah, possibly if you brought more, obviously the more people to the table to be involved in the dialogue, yes, there could be some more answers and perhaps ways of.
Any final words, Mr. Lawrence Walker?
I think that's just hopefully, as I say, there will be an understanding among the buyers, by the sellers here, that's of where their position will be in the market going forward. I'm looking forward to hearing what they announce tomorrow, and see what kind of direction that's going to give the markets.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawrence Walker, and thank you, dear viewers, for being here with us on All 24 News. This is the end of our coverage for today. Join us again tomorrow for more updates. Take care.
This program is brought to you by Sonotrack.